Week 10 is in the book, so that means it's time to hit the waiver wire to find players that could add value to the back end of your rosters. And quick note, I will be referencing rostership percentages in this video, and those are coming from roster data from 1,700 Dynasty leagues on myfantasyleague.com. Basically a 50-50 split of one quarterback and Superflex, all with a minimum of 20-man rosters, so I'm not pulling these players out of nowhere. However, it is possible that some or even all of these guys are already rostered in your leagues, perhaps even by you, but for the most part, there are hundreds of leagues out there right now where these guys are on waivers. First and foremost, I want to highlight a couple players that are highly rostered, but not exactly 100% rostered that I think should be, and that includes Deonta Foreman, Kyron Williams, Paris Campbell, Van Jefferson, and Trey McBride. Again, all guys rostered in over 90% of Dynasty leagues, but not exactly 100%. So double check your waiver wires and immediately add these guys if they are available. All right, let's get started. Here are 5 players that you need to add from your Dynasty waiver wires this week. And first up, I feel obligated to include Colt McCoy in this week's video based on what I would consider to be a solid performance from a backup quarterback this past week. He was my favorite of the backups to play this week, mainly due to the weapons that he has around him, and that paid off pretty well with 238 yards and a touchdown to AJ Green of all people. Now, of course, he doesn't have the rushing upside that Kyler Murray does, but that's fine whenever he's throwing it for 250 and 1, and even if he connected on one more touchdown, 250 and 2 is a very fine streamable quarterback week, especially from a backup quarterback in Colt McCoy. Now, Kyler does have over a week to get healthy for next week's Monday night matchup against the Niners, so it is unlikely that McCoy gets another start, but at least he showed that he is serviceable in his stead, both for the Cardinals and for us in fantasy. And we probably never use him again this year, but should you have to, he's not the worst backup quarterback to have on your Dynasty roster, especially in Superflex League. 2 more players that I feel obligated to include this week because I'm not really excited to add either one of them are Kendall Hinton of the Denver Broncos and Ben Skoranek of the LA Rams, both of whom would step into larger roles if Jerry Jeudy and Cooper Kupp were to miss games. Now, Hinton actually had a decent day on Sunday with 62 yards on 4 receptions after Jeudy went down almost immediately when the game started with an ankle injury. KJ Hamler was already out with a hamstring injury, so Hinton took over as the wide receiver 2 in Denver with Courtland Sutton. And if that same situation were to happen again this week, Hinton could be a sneaky play against a horrible Raiders defense, and with more bye weeks to starting wide receivers in Tampa Bay, Seattle, Miami, and Jacksonville, you could actually end up playing Kendall Hinton in your lineup in week 11. As for Skoranek, he was second on the team this past week in targets behind Tyler Higbee, but only caught 2 of them for 14 yards. Now, I hope for everybody's sake on the Rams that Matthew Stafford is back this week, which would make Skoranek a more interesting play as he's top double-digit PPR points a couple of times this year already without scoring a touchdown, and that was with Cooper Kupp in the lineup. So take Cooper Kupp out and his 12 to 15 targets a game because he's insane. That could mean a little bit more target upside and floor for Ben Skoranek, with the upside that maybe he does score his first touchdown in the week that you actually started him. Like I said, though, I'm not really excited about either player, but if you're that desperate, these are the 2 guys that you need to add this week. Up next, we have Saints tight end Juwan Johnson, who's been an interesting name to me all season, but very specifically the last month or so, as he's seen 4+ targets in 3 of his last 5 games. He's eclipsed 40 receiving yards in 3 of the last 5 and has 4 touchdowns over that span as well. And in a tight end landscape where it's essentially a top 5 tight end or bust, Johnson has a spot as a startable player at the position almost every week if you're that desperate. He is already highly rostered though, but if he is still available in your league, I would throw a few bucks on him just to see what happens. Now we get to the good part. Raiders tight end Foster Moreau.
Well.
Finally, we have a chance to see Foster Moreau as the starter for the Raiders for multiple consecutive weeks now that Darren Waller is on IR, putting up 3 for 43 and 1 this past Sunday, and his 2nd straight week topping 40 receiving yards. I actually highlighted Moreau as a player to pick up and stash back in week 4 this season, and everything that I said then is still applicable today. I highly recommend picking him up right now and stashing him for a couple of reasons. Number 1, he has shown that he can be a handcuffed tight end right now and startable when Darren Waller is out. So if Darren Waller were to miss any time over the remainder of the 2022 season, you would be able to plug and play Foster Moreau in your tight end spot, and other tight ends might not be able to do that. Number 2, he's only 25 years old right now, turning 26 in May, so he's still relatively young, especially for the tight end position. Number 3, he's actually quite athletic for his 6'4", 253-pound frame, running a 4.6 640 at his combine back in 2019. And then number 4, lastly, and perhaps most importantly, he's a free agent at the end of the season. So the combination of all of that makes for a very interesting tight end stash. And like I said, most importantly, the fact that he is a free agent after this year and could sign somewhere or anywhere as a team tight end 1. So if Moreau is still out there, he needs to be added immediately and potentially played in your lineup if you need a tight end. Maybe you just lost Darren Waller for a month, or maybe you just lost Zach Ertz or Gerald Everett, or you need a replacement this week because Evan Ingram and Mike Gesicki are on bye. Then you definitely need to add Foster Moreau to potentially throw into your lineups this week, on top of him just being a really good stash in general. And if you're looking for more moves to make after week 10, I highly recommend checking out Justin's video right up here.